All right, I'm gonna show you two examples of the exact same bass, but just with one key difference. See if you can tell what it is. Here's the second one. I like the second bass quite a lot. First one is cute. Aw, look at it, it's so small. So what's going on here? Well, the literal only difference between those two examples is effects. The good one has effects, and the puny little cute one doesn't. In my humble, but also good and correct opinion, choosing the right preset or making a nice synth sound is really only half the battle when it comes to making great sound. The other battle half is effects. So there are three main categories of effects that I use in my synth production: distortion, dynamics, and space. My name is Sarah, and I'm an electronic pop artist and producer. And this is a lot of people associate distortion with the sound of an electric guitar going through an amp or blown out sounds like this. But it can be used in very subtle ways too, and it is all the time. There are so many different types of distortion out there. And they each have their own unique way that they respond to different signals, so it's great to have a bunch to choose from. My approach with distortion is to basically push it as far as I possibly can before it starts to sound blown out. So if I take a bass from the Usynth and I run it into the transistor color settings of UJAMs Finisher Flux, it basically starts to sound better and better as I turn it up. Until I reach about here. Still sounds really cool, but it's also starting to sound a little bit blown out and kind of fucked up. The envelope is getting so squashed that I'm really losing the original character of the sound. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with doing that as an aesthetic choice, but it doesn't really sound subtle anymore, so I'll back it off to about here. This is a great start, but we can definitely take it further. I pretty much always use multiple different kinds of distortion on every sound. On this one, I added a clipper later in the signal path. A clipper is kind of like a cross between a limiter and a distortion. All right, on to dynamics. Compressors and limiters allow us to change the relationship between the loud and quiet parts of the signal so that we can bring the whole level of the overall sound up louder. I basically follow the same principle as I do with my distortion. I try to push it as far as I possibly can without having it sound all squashed and weird. And just like with distortion, I often use multiple types of dynamics processors for the same sound. For this bass, I used both a compressor and a clipper. I used the compressor to shape the sound and to make it louder. Then I added a clipper on the end, which just removed the tippy tops of the signal so I could turn the whole thing up another 3 dB louder. All right, the final category is space. And again, I used multiple techniques to build up a space around this bass. To start off, I used this really sick digital slapback delay setting on UJAMs Finisher Retro. This thing is really amazing because you can dial in a little bit of digital distortion into it as well. Then I used a reverb send. I always put reverbs on sends. So here I'm creating a separate audio track and then routing the signal from the bass to that track. This allows me to control the level of the dry and wet signal within the mix independently of one another, and I can also process the reverb separate from the dry signal. This is super important with basses where you don't always want a lot of bass frequencies going through your reverb and muddying up the mix. So that's the basics. Thanks for watching.